Okay, we don't need to do introductions. I think everybody knows everybody. The approvals of the December 14th minutes. Are there any additions or corrections or deletions to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the minutes.
I motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Okay, thank you. The minutes will be filed away. Okay, Katie, your report. You sent them out this morning, so we all have them now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I had sent it out before, but I had not attached the document because that's just sometimes how Mondays go.
Yeah,
So we had, our wrap up of December of finishing up our first semester of COPE and Big Friends with the in-person mentoring. We right now are in a big pivot with Omicron, and I've reached out to all of the school admins at this point that we don't anticipate having consistently available volunteers this coming semester with all of the changes we're expecting from UConn, and just knowing what we know about breakthrough and quarantine and all of the struggles that we had this semester, and just getting our volunteers to the sites that they needed to be at consistently was the most challenging that we've ever had. So in anticipation of that, we are kind of pivoting back to our mentoring programs being in a virtual capacity, since we don't have, control over the resource of volunteers, but we can be proactive in kind of making it more accessible and to build that continuity in. So we are transitioning from the mentoring programs being in person to virtual, but what that is also doing is for COPE, that is freeing up some staff time during the day for us to still serve the elementary schools in person and work with the principals and the school psychs of those three buildings to kind of figure out what they want to do with that time. That would typically be YSB staff time there on site to figure out what's going to be the most meaningful for their buildings and what those needs are for maybe the kiddos that we didn't get to connect with in COPE last semester, or if there's a bigger, more emerging need, knowing that, we're bridging that time that begins the transition from fourth grade into middle school, or preparing the elementary school community as a whole to kind of merge into a single elementary school. So we're really looking for that time to kind of become responsive to the needs of those elementary school buildings, to kind of figure out what the best fit for that timeline is. So they will still have YSB staff support during those hours. What it'll look like will be flexible and adaptive. And we will then have the mentoring programs for our elementary schoolers in the afternoon hours on Thursdays to still be able to connect with some mentoring. And then for our middle school, we'll have Tuesday afternoons as a virtual mentoring option to still be able to serve the Big Friends group in that after school time with some mentoring opportunities virtually, similar to what we did last year when we kind of did all of our mentoring online. So we're kind of doing that quick pivot because it's different than it was a month ago. And we're kind of rolling with it and trying to make it meaningful and make it good, and ensure that, what we're putting our time and energy and efforts into are going to be able to continue and be sustainable for this year. So that's kind of what we are in the midst of doing. We're still kind of going along with all the other things. So Out of the Blue is still happening virtually. Sarah's leading that, and that continues to be really well supported in the virtual capacity. We're still running all of our after school programs in person because those are just still YSB staff. So we have control over that. So we're still doing My Voice and My Pride in the after school times on Mondays at MMS. We're having a little bit of a dip in our attendance with My Voice. I think, folks are competing with a lot of Monday clubs, and we're kind of having some loss to student council since they've moved student council from Wednesdays. But we're going and going. We did have to cancel the first My Pride of January, just because that was the day that MMS was the site for the at-home COVID test distributions. So all those after-school clubs were canceled. And then just for January, the way the calendar falls, the next time My Pride would meet is on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, where there's no school. So we'll pick that back up again in February on our regular basis. But we're a little sparse in after school clubs in January, but in December we had our bump and crew with My Pride, and lots of kids still come into that, which is really exciting. We'll still be in the listing for third quarter clubs when they go out, just because that's a rolling open group, and whoever wants to sign up is welcome to join us. We're not putting any kind of limits on it. And if folks have other clubs that they want to be in and they want to kind of leave for a quarter and come back, it's flexible and open, and we're just happy to have our crew showing up. Our mother-daughter circle is still going on. They're going to have to bump out to do their 8 sessions, just because we did have some staff absence last week when it would usually meet. And those are kind of the biggest program updates from December and kind of our pivot this month. The exciting thing of our new program is that we are moving forward with orienting folks for the youth diversion team. So that is going to be happening virtually now. We've pivoted that to virtual. It was scheduled to be an in-person orientation for team members, but what Sarah was hearing in her role as the coordinator is that most folks, while we are not seeing kids, would prefer to meet in that virtual capacity for that orientation. So, we certainly hear that and want to honor that, and pivot where we can. And the hope is that once we do start having the ability to receive cases, that we will be at a pandemic point where it's easier to meet in person and folks aren't too worried or concerned. So that will be officially known as the Willington Ashford Mansfield Restorative Diversion Team, the WAM RDT. And that's been a really exciting process to kind of go through and to kind of be really collaborative in. We were able to, in December, have a meeting with our entire YSB staff team and the staff of the Willington and Ashford YSBs together with Erica Bromley, and kind of really finish hammering out the last pieces. Sarah's been doing an amazing job as the coordinator and kind of taking on logos, taking on all of the paperwork and the organization and making it make sense and making it accessible, and making it like kind of dummy proof for the dummies like me. But to really be excited about this project and this program. So Sarah, I don't know if you have some things that you would like to share about that work, because you've certainly been pouring tons of time, effort, and love into it.
Not really. I mean, I'm super excited to get it going. I'm excited about who we have coming to the table for this. We have such a really amazing group of people who stepped forward and showed interest. So I think it's going to be a really just great thing to have. And just the more I learn about the restorative process, I think it's an awesome thing to have in our area. And I think that we really can support a lot of youth and families this way. So I'm excited to get a jump start. And yeah, I'm happy that the paperwork, I'm such a dot your I's, cross your T's, make everything perfect. So we're there, we got there. And it will be really, I'm excited for Thursday and just to see where this goes.
And so the next steps are going to be, we're doing that orientation for our team members who are going to be serving in that volunteer role of being the diversion team, and being parts of those circles. And then we are anticipating to go on the town council agenda for the 24th, for the town council to review the memorandums of agreement that we've gotten back from the lawyer in the past week, or I guess, yeah, we got them last week. So we got those revisions finalized from the town lawyer. So ready to present to our town councils and heads of governance for Willington and Ashford. And we're hoping that they will be excited and ready to sign off to make it official so that we can start receiving cases once they do make it official. Right now, we'll be doing the orientation prior to them signing off on it, but we won't be officially established until they sign off on it. So we won't be able to receive cases until everyone's in agreement. But we wanted to keep the momentum going with the interest that we have to be able to orient folks. And we do know from Erica Bromley, who's our juvenile justice liaison to the Connecticut Youth Services Association, that holding our orientation in January counts as being functional board, which potentially puts us in that eligibility for funding applications for the next fiscal year. So we will cross our fingers that, we're able to move forward for receiving cases for February, and we'll kind of see what happens from there.
I had trouble unmuting. Anything else, Katie?
I think that's the highs, lows, and in-betweens from me.
All righty. Pat, you want to give your report? Human Services report?
Sure, a couple of things. I know last meeting we talked about budget, our budget, my budget, the human service budget is due to the town manager this Friday, or due to finance, because there are pieces that they need to put into. I did want to let you know that after our conversation, I have prepared a service improvement for an additional social work position. And I know that you talked about, the support of that. So I think it'll be critically important for the support for that. That would be for two areas. One would be to expand our services of the Youth Service Bureau to serve high school age students in the community, and the other would be increased services to Mansfield Board of Education and the youth. So those would be the parts of that. The other thing that I want to let you all know, Katie alluded to it, we're obviously in town experiencing the same thing that they're experiencing everywhere else regarding, our numbers as far as COVID is concerned, and breakthrough cases with people who have been vaccinated. So everywhere in town, we're dealing with the same staffing challenges that they're dealing with everywhere else. So I'm just asking people to be patient about that. We're doing the best that we can. And the other thing that I wanted to also let you know about is that the next wave of distributing test kits and masks, COVID home test kits and masks is going to be happening. It's going to be happening a little differently though. They're actually targeting vulnerable populations and keeping essential services open. So the town council voted last night, kind of blessed the recommendation of the town manager. There's not going to be a mass distribution. I think there are a number of people who have been looking for that. There's some that are going through to the school system. There's some that are going to agencies that provide, services to Mansfield vulnerable residents. Some going to different low-income housing because that was another identified area. And different service providers. So, it's not as many as people would have hoped we got, but we're going to at least be able to guarantee that people who, I can't begin to tell you the number of calls that I fielded from people who were not able to access it because of transportation issues, timing issues, homebound status, just a number of things. So it's going to be a targeted distribution. So just so that you know that, but some did go to the schools with this. And again, I'm assuming that the superintendent will be involved in how those are distributed. It's not enough for one per person that we might even identify, but that's kind of the way the decision was made here in town on how to get them out to vulnerable people. So some were designated for, some of our most vulnerable people that we serve at the senior center. Some were designated for the most vulnerable people we serve through social services, and some were sent to the schools and different agencies. And then some are to different groups of workers in the town as well. So some went to business for a set that provide essential services in town. But anyway, so that's kind of my other piece of news and information. Do you have any questions for me?
No, but thank you. That's very helpful information because I had some families from Mansfield reaching out to me with some concerns about the testing kits and the masks. So that's information that I can bring back to them. So I appreciate that.
But hold hopefully the
Yeah.
new federal program where they're going to be sending out kits to people will take care of some of the problem too. So,
Yeah, and I'm not sure if, I mean, they've talked about it at federal level, they've talked about it at state level, so I'm not sure. I do know that they also mentioned last night, and I've heard it as well on the news, that insurance now is supposed to cover the home tests. So I think that will, once the supply gets out there, I think there'll be a little more relief on that side. I think some of it is a little bit of a misunderstanding about the test kits too, because for some people, the masks are actually or should be a bigger deal than N95 masks.
right.
Should be a bigger deal than the test kits. But, again, I also want to remind people that, as the supplies last, both the library and the community center also have N95 masks to hand out. And all you do is walk up and ask.
Where was this
So we'll
at?
have some in our office as well. For us, I'll be honest with you, with the people we serve, a lot of them, the masks are a much bigger deal, having the good masks, than actually having the test kits.
So
So,
Pat, we're also the distributing besides the senior center? Your
well, we're
office?
not we're target distributing, so it's
No,
not
no.
like people come up and ask.
Face
But the masks themselves, the library, main branch of the library, I
Okay,
think the National Center has some as well, and then the community center.
okay. Thank
So
you.
while they last.
Related to this, Mansfield Public Schools did provide one test kit to each staff member. And there was a form that families could fill out where families could request a test kit, which contains 2 tests. And those were distributed by each school to families with children. We just received additional allotment today. And
Right.
that allotment will be used specifically to target students and staff who are ill, and to make a determination if they're positive or negative. I think we're fulfilling our last requests that we weren't able to fulfill last week, and then we're using those in a targeted manner for those staff or students that are showing symptoms that are symptomatic. So,
Okay, thanks. Thanks,
Yeah.
Larry. Okay, moving on. If there's no other questions for Pat, we're on old business. Sector reports, what are those, Katie?
Those are if anybody in the group has a report to give either from their agency, like the police
Oh, okay.
department, schools.
That's right, okay. Does anybody have anything they want to report?
well, in theory, what I just shared could reflect that.
Good,
And then when we get to additional items, I do have something.
okay. If no one else has anything to report, we're going to move on to work group updates. So,
So I
Go
can
ahead.
take it from there. So we met last week, our work group, to talk about drafting a letter from the Mansfield Youth Advisory Board to Town Council for a request for a service improvement based on what we collected in terms of our dialogue last meeting. And from the work group, I was able to put a draft together. And maybe we can all look at that now and decide on next steps. I think our plan ultimately was to make sure Town Council got this letter. So I think that was the vision, and making sure we're still on board for that. So I can screen share
Great.
this, and I can also share it if people prefer that method.
I think if we can do it on screen share, then it's FOIA friendly, and I just made you
Fair enough.
co-host, so hopefully it'll work.
Okay, so let me screen share here. So I'm going to lose. All right, here we go. So right now you should see the letter.
Yep.
Okay. So I can read through it for those that are that might not have a large screen, if that's preferable, or if people want to take a moment to read it independently. How would we like to approach that?
Why don't you read it, Larry, in
Yep.
case people don't have a large.
Sure. Dear Mansfield Town Council, we, the Mansfield Youth Service Advisory Board, are writing to formally recommend that Mansfield Youth Services put in a service improvement request to their 2022-2023 proposed operating budget for an additional social worker. This request is being made in part for the reasons listed below. As of December of 2021, children in Mansfield who are new potential clients seeking support from Mansfield Youth Service social worker for the school-based services at Mansfield Middle School are unable to receive these individual counseling services in school, as all social work slots during the school days are at capacity. While there are still some evening hours available for counseling, when availability of residents does not match up with availability of youth service clinicians, there are additional challenges in finding a good fit for outside referrals at this time. Youth services staff works hard to connect those families to appropriate levels of care that better fits their scheduling needs, though this is becoming increasingly challenged as the pandemic continues in the already strained mental health system. Mansfield will soon enter a regional arrangement with Ashford and Willington for a juvenile review board known as the Willington-Ashford-Mansfield Restorative Diversion Team, and we anticipate that there will be an increased need of support from our town social workers for children entering this diversion program. We also expect to see an increased need of high school age students as well, a population that our current Mansfield Youth Service provides primary truancy case management and referral-based support to. In order for the town to meet the needs of this program, we believe it's essential to expand the social work support offered to children and families of Mansfield. Lastly, in recent years, there have been increased mandated requirements that youth service bureaus in Connecticut need to support, such as truancy and family with service needs. In order to effectively fulfill these statutory obligations and meet the needs of Mansfield children, we believe that ongoing continuous social work support to children and families is a critical element of any successful program that meets the truancy and poison needs of our kids. The Mansfield Youth Service Advisory Board is committed to supporting the children and families of Mansfield, and we offer this service improvement request in hopes to better service our community. We believe that increased state mandates, the beginning of a youth diversionary team, and increased needs of our children, that it is essential that we add an additional town social worker. The pandemic has only exacerbated these needs without continued and additional, The pandemic has only exacerbated these needs, and without continued and additional social worker support, we do not believe we will be able to meet the increasing needs of Mansfield children and families. Members of our committee would be happy to further discuss this request.
That's good, Larry.
Sincerely, Mansfield Youth Service Advisory Board. I mean, I just took what we had talked about, so
Well, you know, when you
Sorry.
talk about the social worker for the town, could you change it, another position for youth services? Social worker position for youth services.
you want it to explicitly say use. Yeah, I think that was implied, but we can change the language to make sure it's clear.
Yeah. Other than that, I think it's very good. Does anybody have any comments on the letter?
Larry, thank you. That's
Yeah.
exactly, I think, what we're trying to do here. And I apologize, by the way, for missing Monday's meeting.
Oh, no worries.
But,
it took me some time to get to it. It was a busy week last week, so I started it last week, and then I had to finish it and over the weekend / Monday. So
you did great. The only thing that I would look at is whether we can enhance just a little bit the whatever we're saying about the needs of the high school. And I'm curious, Katie, has anybody from the high school spoken to you or reached out to you since I met with them? Because I
haven't had anyone from EO reach out.
All right, I might re-prompt them only because I think that this will not be as successful if we don't have some hungry personnel over at the high school who really are looking to get, and they are. And for those of you that aren't aware, I actually met with the superintendent, principal, and their entire support service team just to introduce the notion that we were in fact looking to support increased social worker personnel for Youth Service Bureau, and that we are making assumptions at the high school more places to refer, to, especially Youth Services Bureau. But we didn't want to make that assumption without making sure that it was accurate. Of course, they were all over it. Every single person in the meeting was like, oh, geez, we didn't even know that was done. Of course we help. Of course we can't mental health services for our kids, and on and on and on. So they're busy too, but I think timeliness is going to be important. And it looks to me like you said, the next council meeting is when you have to have your budget ready for. Is that correct? Yeah. Anyway,
No, but what happens in the process is work with my staff to produce the human service budgets, including service improvement requests. Those go to the town manager. So what I was saying to you before is those go to the town manager. What the council sees is the town manager's budget. When he goes through that, and he has to look at all departments and see, you know what I mean, what requests and balance it out. And usually they have kind of a target number. So I'll be honest, this may or may not be in it, depending on what the other request is in the target. But if you guys are sending the letter, the town council will get it. And you are in advisement to the town council. That's appropriate. So, but they're starting the budget process. So now is the time. You know, if you get beyond a certain point, it's really hard to add something into. And they often want it. Last time we added a position, both Shamim and I went in front of the town council to talk about it. So they really want to see the support from from where the referrals and that are coming from. And certainly, they want to see more than what the staff has to say. So it would be appropriate to come. I mean, I think it's critical for people to know that, the services that we provide right now to high school age students are limited.
yes. Should the manager get this letter then, if he has the potential of cutting this before it even gets to the council?
So it would go to both. And I actually prepared him for it. I did tell him that this was part of our discussion and that I would be putting a service improvement in. But I think that it should go and he should be CC'd.
Okay. So Larry, can you, clean up the letter if it needs any, additions or anything like that, and send it to Katie so she can send it to the rest of us?
Yeah. So I can't speak to the needs of the high school.
Right.
So that's why I left it more like what we are currently providing. And I could anticipate what I think from my lens, I can anticipate an increased need of high school age support based exclusively on the fact that we are going to have that juvenile review board. I
Right.
can't
Yes.
speak to high school needs.
Correct.
So I understand what Deborah's saying. I just, I don't know what I can add because I just don't know. I don't know what I don't know. Obviously, I think if there was a need to expand services to that demographic age group, then obviously, if there are limited services now, there would be a high need for a social worker.
Right.
But I think just the need alone for high school age kids connected to the juvenile review board is warranted enough for some allocation of a social worker.
Right.
Right.
without a doubt.
They'll be the largest group of students that
Yep.
use the diversion
Yep.
program.
They're highly
far the
unlikely to be
largest.
elementary age
My
kids. There might
experience.
be occasionally a middle school child, and I
Correct.
think the highest percentage would be high school age children.
Yeah.
you
And
know.
every once in a while you have a younger kid that gets in some kind of trouble gets sent, but primarily it's high school.
Laura, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, are we in a situation where the high school would be adding to their budget too? Or are we billing them for, because it is a separate district.
Right. Well, we're not really
And
talking
there are
about
kids,
district.
but
Right. No, we'll be serving Mansfield kids through our Youth Service Bureau.
okay.
So,
Yeah, they're not a school. I mean, they have their own school-based social workers that
right.
I think, deal with other concerns. You know, this is a
Right.
community. Yeah.
Are they working with the WAM for this? Like, are we going to be working with them as part of the redirection program?
Yes,
Okay. So they're going to be needing, like, it could be as part of the memoranda of understanding, how do we handle? I don't know.
So Laura,
So-
they actually will have their own teams. Like Katie and Sarah can speak better to it for when their kids get in trouble. So we
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing the case management for them. We wouldn't be doing the counseling for them. We're doing the coordination of the whole program, but they'll have their staff involved. Is that correct, Katie and Sarah? I just want to.
Yeah, so far as it works,
this is
great.
different. So we will have our own kids to do our case management and service coordination
Mansfield kids.
and
Okay.
support of families that are high school
So,
age.
yeah, how it's set
They'll
up
be
right now.
identified through this program.
Yep. There's the coordinator, which kind of oversees the whole JRB, which would support Ashford and Wellington. So that's kind of like the one entry point. And then each town, depending on where the referral comes from. So if it's an Ashford referral, they have an Ashford caseworker. And then Ashford has their own core group of people that would participate at that diversion meeting, along with people who would also be regulars at those meetings. We anticipate a member of the police force to kind of be a regular, somebody from EO Smith, because it kind of involves all three towns, to be a regular at these JRB meetings. And then the rest would kind of be a rotating board, depending on which case we have and where they're from. And we've kind of outlined how all those referrals will happen, and that they'll kind of be one main hub, and then each one would then get distributed to their representative caseworker. And I think that what they're trying to get at with the social work position is that we at Youth Services have to break our services off with kids when they leave 8th grade because they go on to the high school. So having a social worker here in YSB will allow us to work with any families that we get from Mansfield as a referral through this JRB, that we can provide additional supports to their families that school social workers sometimes can't, because they're just offering school-based services. So I think I summarized that effectively.
very good.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there anything else, Larry or Deborah? Anything else we should?
I think Lisa had a question at one point. I don't know if she
Yeah.
still has it.
I did. Pat kind of clarified it.
Okay.
And so did Sarah, just more about, is the social worker going to be, I don't know, housed is the wrong word, but is their office going to be at the Youth Service Bureau, or are they going to be more accessible and have perhaps an office to be able to support the social workers at the school as well?
So, this again we'd have to work, but they would have a space in Youth Services because that's where they're employed. But as well as our other staff have places in Youth Services, but they may go to meet with someone in the school, or we are now close enough that someone could get a pass and come over to our offices if that made better sense to get services. So, we're right across the parking lot from EO Smith. So, so that's what I would say. Those things would have to be worked out depending on if this position actually comes to be or not. And by the way, in our offices, we'd be hanging the person from the ceiling because office space at the town hall is prime. So we would, we'd have to be looking at how we were handling our office situation and, our time in the schools or at other locations.
So do we need to make a motion to, forward Larry's letter? Or, okay, so I'll need a motion that we petition the town council for an additional social work position
I'll make the motion.
youth services, and, you know, and that letter will be, the justification will be attached to that, okay? Okay, so Laura makes the motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Okay, it's unanimous, I guess. No one, does anyone disagree or object? All right, so the motion is unanimous. Larry, thank you for doing the work on that letter.
Yeah, I mean, you guys
And you
helped.
too,
I mean,
Deborah.
I
Nice
just
people.
took what people had shared and tried to capture it. So I don't think I did anything outside the norm. I took minutes basically. So thank you though.
Yeah, but you put it together and it reads very well, so
No, thanks.
thank you.
And I did add to the heading, dear Mansfield Town Council and Town Manager, Mr. Ryan Aylesworth, so that
Good.
the letter reads and goes to both entities.
Great, thank you.
So so formally, I will share this with you, Katie, and you can get it to those entities for us. Is that how this will work?
That is actually what I'm asking Pat right now. So Pat, what are the next steps for this to go through the right chains of communication?
Right, so what would happen is somehow we'd probably have to get Ethel's signature as the chair and list the members of the advisory group kind of on the side. And then we would take that down to Tasha in the town manager's office, you know, and also, and she would put it in the council packet. And then would, you know, with a copy also for the town manager.
Okay, well, I can come
So,
up and
I
sign
would
the letter.
require Ethel's, you know, and
I'll
you
co-
should mention in the letter that you unanimously voted to send this forward on
Yeah.
this particular date.
Okay,
I'll add that.
thank you, Larry. Yeah, when it's ready, just let me know and I'll come up and sign it.
So this will, if we get a list of the names, the proper spellings, I can paste those in. This will be ready in a half hour.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Katie, can you send
I can
those?
get you those names as soon as we log off, so hopefully that'll expedite it.
Yep.
And then Ethel, if you're available after this meeting, we can end the meeting and stay on and coordinate a timing.
Sure.
Just because I know I'll be out of the office next week for planned vacation. So that way we can get it squared away and
Yeah.
ready to go for when they're ready for the agenda.
Okay, I'm around, so it's not a big deal for me to come up there. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, we're going on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? Any other business? Okay, and anybody from the public commented on any of our meetings, Katie, that we should know?
I have not received any public comment communications for our meeting today.
Okay, well, our next meeting is February 8th. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
so moved.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, and stay safe, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.